Before I close, I want to bring someone up for about 15 minutes and introduce him with one of my most fun stories. Story of Bunker Bean. That seriously is his name. The turn of the last century, Bunker Bean, for lack of a better way to say it, was a loser and an idiot. Had a menial job in a soap manufacturing company, failed at everything he ever did, had basically given up in life, and lived in a boarding house. And one day a new neighbor moved into that boarding house. Said he was a medium, a special spiritual guide to people. And he bought this crap. And he listened to the medium. And after the medium went into a deep trance, he looked up at Bunker Bean and he told him, "I can't believe this, but you are the great-grandson of Napoleon Bonaparte." And he believed him. Started going to the library every day, reading about his great-grandfather. Started to put his hand inside his jacket. Started to walk taller. His voice started to change. All of a sudden he had a strut. He was exuding confidence. His bosses noticed this, made him a supervisor. The supervisors of the supervisors noticed this, made him a vice president. And within 5 years of being told he was a great-grandson of Napoleon Bonaparte, became the president of the soap manufacturing company. And one day, sitting in his large office, having moved into his beautiful house, living a tremendous lifestyle, he picked up a newspaper only to see his old friend, the medium spiritual guide, in handcuffs arrested for fraud. Maybe, he thought, I was handed a bunch of crap. And he started to go back to the library and he read a bit more. And somehow he missed the fact Napoleon did have a son who died at the age of 21 and had no heirs. How he thought he was the great-grandson of Napoleon Bonaparte is beyond my comprehension. But now he knew the truth.
I know that one.
But it was too late. It was too late. The truth couldn't stop him. All those success habits were in place. He could not walk less tall. He couldn't lose his confidence. He couldn't suddenly find the same loser mentality that led him down into the sewer. And he became more successful and more successful and more successful. Folks, even when the belief is a pile of hooey, there is magic in believing. Which brings me to my last speaker, Sheryll Mizell. Trained as an accountant, she helped people prepare business plans, business models. She's very good at it. And one day someone came to her all excited about a solar panel deal. And this was a well-educated woman. This was a woman who was dressed to the nines, sat in front of her, gave her pitch, and Sheryll made a unique observation. And maybe not so unique, but a very honest observation. She looked at her and said, "Your words are right. You got the speech. You nailed it. I would give you 2 cents of my money. There's something about you that doesn't ring true. There's something about your energy that tells me you're just full of it. There is something about the way you stand and look and act. In fact, what you are speaks so loudly, I can't hear a single word you're saying." And Sheryll suddenly found a calling. It wasn't about numbers. It wasn't about the ability to crunch numbers. Rather, it was teaching people how to believe in themselves, how to create a self-image. And in this calling, she has changed lives. She has brought in the last 7 to 8 years many of our speakers who went from disbelief to belief. Someone I'm really quite proud of, Sheryll Mizell.
Thank you, Stephen. That was this opportunity and for the words. Just in terms of my own background, as Stephen said, my background is in accounting. I went to school for accounting, for finances, I do taxes. I also have my life insurance, so a whole bunch of financial services experience. But then at some point, I got into HR. No background in it, but wanted to actually observe people's behavior, get more in tune to how people thought, their emotions behind certain things. So I thought of a way to combine the two, my passions, one for numbers. I love numbers. But I also love people. And I realized that when I worked in the corporate America, even though I was doing my job, I would get up and go and speak to people, see how they were doing, see where they were. But I didn't realize that I can combine my two passions. So I'm an entrepreneur. I'm also a musician, about to be an author. I'm also the CEO of a business called Fit for Biz Consulting. And that came out of my journey of numbers and observing and speaking with people. And then also a lot of this is from my own self-exploration as to why I did things, how I behaved the way I did when it came to money and saving. So Steve mentioned, maybe about 7 years ago, someone referred a client to me. And she was very excited. I was supposed to help her set up her business plan to speak in front of an investor. And from that relationship, Fit for Biz started 5 years ago, 2012. And the premise of that is to show people how, as I'm so grateful that I follow both Akimana and Dr. Ross, is because they both speak to what I'm doing. We're talking about pain in the body. Pain in the body can also be associated with pain in your budget, pain in your finances. We talked about healing. And sometimes you don't realize a lot of the obstacles are based on things, past traumas, past things going on that we don't realize are affecting us now with our emotional connections to money. I had another client who, we had this 90-day, we were putting together a budget. So at the end of 90 days, I was asking, okay, so where are we? And then come to find out, she went shopping and did all these other things that was against what she wanted. So then I started asking people, okay, well, what state of mind are you in when you're making those purchases? Because that used to be me. So Fit for Biz was actually me being aware of myself, but also putting together a plan to make other people aware of how they were behaving and spending their money. So I love Starbucks. So I said this one, do you know how much you're spending a day just on Starbucks coffee? Multiply that by a week, by a month, by a year. Then you begin to realize how your impulsive spending habits are affecting your money, affecting your budget, affecting how you want to save and plan for the future. And then also I started realizing why are some people successful and why other people struggle? Why people have great networks, why they're able to seem to have everything go their way and other people struggle. And then I started relating myself to my own family dynamic and in my neighborhood. How can people from the same neighborhood or same family go in two different directions? I have a girlfriend who's a partner at a really prestigious law firm in Midtown. She didn't want to be a partner, but through her journey, she went on a lot of interviews, but the feedback she got was, she knows her, she went to Stanford, but they said that she didn't have a personality. We didn't know where to put her in our in our business, in our, who can she work with? So then I started also observing, so she got to be a partner by default. It wasn't by design. And I realized that a lot of us are where we are in our life because of default. We didn't design our life. So it's about also getting back and creating your life by design. And a lot of that is sitting down and getting rid of some of the obstacles that are in your way. So before I sit down and speak to them about their money, I ask them, we go through this whole plan of reconnecting your emotions. How are you feeling when you get to Starbucks? How are you feeling when you go shopping? Because I used to, when my boss or something happened, I would go shopping. I have like 10,000 pair of black shoes in my closet. I'm not the only one who just go out and come on. Sorry to call you out, but I'm not the only one who just does impulsive spending, impulsive shopping. And it's addiction. I ask people, what are you addicted to? I'm not addicted to anything. Yes, if you're impulsive shopping, if you just buy 3 Starbucks of coffee a day, you have addictions. And let's start talking about that so we can figure out and get a plan and create something for you so you actually start planning from your life now and start planning what you want to create. My life, use myself as an example, I realized that a lot of my life, even though I have a great resume, I started thinking there were other students of mine, friends who had better grades than I did, but I seemed to always get the great jobs. I had great internships in college. I came out, graduated from PACE with a job, And even though I left corporate America in 2000, started my own business, when I wanted to get back into corporate America, I thought about it, I believed I could, and I got a great job. And it wasn't that I was out for like 10 years out of corporate America. I came back in with a great job. So I started thinking that didn't make me better than anyone else. But as Steve said, it's about what you believe, how you believe, how you want your life to look. No matter where you are now, you can start designing your life based on and being intentional. So it's about being intentional, about realizing the words that you speak, and starting from there no matter where you are. So before we can even put together your financial package, we need to get some other obstacles out of the way. So Fit for Biz, we're actually designing, I have 3 books coming out before the end of this year with curriculums. One of them deals with the emotional ties to your money. The second one has to do with your relationship with money, what you believe about money. And the third one actually is putting together a financial literacy program that I want to take back to the Board of Ed, because they don't have those. They don't teach you how to think. They don't teach you how to speak, or create the life that you want. So to bring that back to the schools, I was fortunate that when I was in junior high school, I was in a band. I played flute for 2 years. So now I'm actually reconnecting to playing the flute, playing the keyboards, I'm singing again, I write poetry. So I'm taking all of that to create musical workshops, to take back to the Board of Ed, to show kids how to creatively connect to learning about money, learning about, and also about thinking and starting to design the life that you want even though you're in school. And then also what we also do at Fit for Biz is we listen. I think a lot of this passion comes from my own experience and realizing that I am, as Steve said, you can design the life. This starts with believing and declaring, being specific and intentional about the words that you use. And I think as more people become aware of the words that you use and the emotions behind it, then whatever they want to accomplish can really happen. And I just don't say that, it's my experience. And when I speak with people and get them to understand it's about the words you use versus the thought behind, like what someone perceives the words to use, it's about being very clear and understanding, but also understand the emotional. Like, I'm so thankful for the 2 of you because it's talking about pain. Pain is like scarcity. Pain can be related to scarcity in terms of your finances. We don't want to sometimes go to the doctor to talk about these kind of issues, or even be courageous enough to stand and tell people what these issues can do, or how the medicines that you're taking can affect your body. And that's the same thing with finances. Sometimes we don't want to talk about that and be honest about it or where it's coming from. And I realized what my need for buying shoes were. And because when I was a kid, I was always teased about, everybody always had the latest sneakers or whatever was out there, and I didn't. I always got whatever the rejects were back in the day. So I realized that when I get money, I'm going to show them. I'm going to buy whatever I want. So I didn't realize it was the connection to me being bullied about my shoes. And then as I became aware of that, I became intentional about shopping. It wasn't like when I just, as a trigger, as an impulse. I know now I have a budget. When I go out now, it's intentional. It's just about moving people forward to that. And one of the things that I teach my clients is once you declare your words, believe the words, and then actually watch it all manifest and result. So thank you so much for your
I'd like to close with my favorite personal story. I want to see a show of hands. Who in this room ever got to meet their hero? Surprisingly large number. You might be surprised who my hero was. You're probably thinking it's a Wall Street guy, of course. Who else? Not true. My hero, believe it or not, was a basketball coach. Although in truth, he was much, much more. And his name was James Thomas Anthony Albano. Jimmy E, for those who don't know, to friends and family, including me. And Jim Valvano was one of the most inspirational people I've ever met. It was the late 80s. I was younger than anyone in this room today, even you, Colin. And through almost a miraculous set of circumstances, I got to meet my hero. I got to have lunch with Jim Valvano. He was funny. And when I say funny, I mean really funny. Telling me about his coaching experience, he had me falling off the table, literally. Became coach of Rutgers at 21 years of age, teaching 19-year-old kids how to think. Went on to Johns Hopkins for 2 years. And then he made it to Division I basketball in Bucknell University in Louisville, Pennsylvania. And the school heads told him, gee, coach, you're really lucky. You're really lucky to be here. I said, what are you talking about? You were 1 in 26 last year. You haven't had a winning season since the French and Indian War. What are you talking about? But under Jim Valvano, they did have winning seasons. And in the 8 years he was there, he accomplished a great deal. Went on to Division I Iona. In a college in New Rochelle, pretty good college, but let's face it, they had a credibility issue. First time he ever left New York to recruit a kid, put out his hand and said, Jim Valvano, Iona College. The kid turned around and said, hey, Ma, this kid owns his own school. Iona is the name. I don't own a college.
Oh, yeah.
But a couple of years at Iona, and he got the dream coaching job. It was the dream job. He became head coach of North Carolina State, the Wolfpack. One of the best coaching jobs in the entire country. And then dessert was served, and the mood started changing of that meeting drastically. It went from funny to serious very quickly, and for whatever need, Jim Valvano decided to tell me about his hero, his dad, Rocco Valvano. You should know a few things about his dad. Born in Queens Village, lived in Queens Village, never left Queens Village. Type of guy who thought everything north of the George Washington Bridge was Canada. Never made much money, but he was one of the wealthiest people Jim ever met. Never had any position of influence, but he influenced more lives than anyone Jim Valvano ever met. And when he became coach of North Carolina State, as he described it to me, we celebrated. I went to Queens Village, and we celebrated the way Italians celebrate. We eat. We start at 2 o'clock, finish at midnight, and somewhere in the middle there was halftime. And around midnight, when everyone was stuffed to the gills, his father called him up to his bedroom. And in very hushed tones, brought out a big, large, overstuffed suitcase from under the bed, put it in front of Jim, and said, I know that one day you're going to win the NCAA tournament. I know it. And I'm going to be there. And pointing to the suitcase, he said, my bags are packed for you. First year, he made it to the Final Four, lost to St. John's. First year. But he was depressed. He was down. So Jim Valvano did what he always did when he was depressed, when he was down. He called his dad. He said, what are you down for? What are you feeling down for? To make the Final Four in your first year? That's phenomenal. It's fantastic. And I know you're going to win the NCAA tournament, and I'm going to be there. My bags are packed for you. Second year, he didn't make the Final 16. He didn't make the Final 16. Really depressed. So what did he do when he was depressed? He called his dad. He said, Dad, I blew it. I was terrible. His father said, what are you talking about? You had nothing but freshmen and sophomores. I could see during the course of the year how you were changing them, how you were molding them. Some of these kids are going to go on to lead you to a championship. You were fantastic, better than you were the first year. I know you're going to win the NCAA tournament. I know it, and I'm going to be there. My bags are packed. No matter how bad he felt, no matter how bad Jim Valvano thought of himself, if he didn't measure up as a husband, as a father, as a son, as a coach, no matter how bad he felt, his dad instantly lifted him up. And it was the same words every time. I believe in you. I have faith in you. I know you're going to make it. My bags are packed. Well, one day, he drove to his home in North Carolina, like any other day. Parents were visiting. And when he got there, there were ambulances all around the house, He got out of the car and he ran into his house, only to find that his hero, his dad, who had never been sick a day in his life, had a heart attack and died. I don't have to tell you, for anyone here who's lost a loved one, you know how it feels, but Jim Valvano didn't just lose his father. He lost his best friend. He lost his primary cheerleader. He lost his motivator. He lost the man he held up as an example his entire life, and he was gone in an instant. But he dedicated himself to live the dream his father had for him. He was going to win the NCAA tournament, and nothing was going to stop him. Nothing was going to stop him. Which brings us to 1983. For those of you who are under 40, I feel bad for you. Because if you were a basketball fan, college basketball fan, you will remember 1983. North Carolina State won 9 straight games, every one of them more miraculous than the end. When they played Las Vegas, they were losing by 1 point. They threw up an air ball, basically just nicked the rim. The players from Las Vegas were fumbling the ball around. It landed in one of the players' hands in North Carolina State when his butt was on the ground, and he threw the ball up. Right in. They won. Every single game ended almost exactly the same way. It was as if God wanted him to win the NCAA tournament, but it had to come to an end at some point, right? Because when they got to the finals, who was on the other side? The Houston Cougars. That was one of the greatest college teams ever assembled. The center was Akeem Olajuwon, Clyde Drexler at guard. They had some of the best future NBA players who ever lived. North Carolina State had no chance against them. The Washington Post said, trees would tap dance. Orson Welles would skip breakfast, lunch, and dinner before North Carolina State would beat this great Houston team. Jim Valvano announced, we're going to slow the game so slow. We're going to make the game so slow that we're going to be in it. And of course, when the game began, the brilliant coach that he was, they ran Houston off the court in the first half, and they had a huge lead. But this was a great team. And by the time there were only 44 seconds left in this game, the score was tied. Before they went out for the last play, he mapped it up. He turned to one of his best players, Lorenzo Charles. Lorenzo Charles from Brooklyn, New York. He said, Lo, listen to me. If the ball goes in the air, I want you to pretend it's a hubcap. They went out for that last play, 44 seconds. They played takeaway. They passed, they dribbled. No one from Houston was able to get their hands on the ball, and the clock was ticking down. 5, 4, 3, 2. And Derek Wittenberg threw up an air ball with about 1 second left, at which point Lorenzo Charles grabbed the ball in the air, and at the last tick of the clock, shoved it through the hoop. And Jim Valvano became the 28th coach to ever win the NCAA tournament. And as he ran out on the court, the announcers said, he's lost his mind. Folks, he didn't lose his mind. Because sitting there in Chicago that day, looking at my hero who had tears in his eyes, and I realized for the first time he's human, just like I am. And Jim said to me, you know, when that ball went through the hoop, I heard my father's voice as if he was standing right next to me. And the voice said, I'm proud of you, son. And I knew you'd make it. My bags were always packed. I'm going to ask each of you, when you go home today, to have your bags packed for people in your life that you love most. To make sure that you go out there and tell those people and look them in the eye and tell them, I believe in you. I have faith in you. I know you're going to make it. My bags